The deep space vessel Pathfinder drifted silently through the void, its powerful engines humming quietly as it conducted a standard survey of the outer reaches of the Cygnus Arm. Commander Jun Park sat in the command chair, reviewing the daily reports while his crew worked diligently at their stations. The mission had been uneventful so far. 3 months of scanning uninhabited systems had yielded little beyond scientific data. "Commander, I'm picking up something unusual," Lieutenant Mina Kim called out suddenly, her voice cutting through the quiet hum of the bridge. Very faint, but definitely artificial. Park set aside his tablet and moved to her station. "Show me." Kim's fingers moved across her console with practiced precision. It's repeating on a cycle of approximately 93 seconds. The pattern is complex, definitely not random stellar noise. The screen displayed a waveform that pulsed with mathematical precision. Park studied it with narrowed eyes. After 10 years commanding deep space missions, he had developed an instinct for the significant amid the routine. "How far?" he asked. "Based on signal degradation, approximately 2 light days from our position," Kim replied. "It's coming from a system not on our survey route." Park turned to his navigation officer. "Officer Sung, plot a course. Lieutenant Kim, continue monitoring that signal. Try to decode it if possible." As the Pathfinder altered course, excitement spread through the crew. First contact protocols were reviewed, and the ship's xenolinguists prepared potential communication algorithms. The signal grew stronger as they approached its source, a yellow star with 9 planets. "The signal originates from the 4th planet," Kim reported. "Terrestrial, slightly larger than Earth. Atmosphere is thin but breathable. Surface shows signs of advanced civilization. But," she paused, frowning at her readings, "something's wrong. I'm detecting massive environmental degradation. The planet appears to be experiencing some kind of geological instability." Park ordered the ship to establish orbit around the troubled world. The view on the main screen showed a planet in crisis. Vast cracks ran across continental landmasses, and several active volcanoes spewed ash into the atmosphere. Once great cities lay in ruins. "Life signs?" Park asked. Science Officer Day checked his instruments. "Yes, but clustered in underground structures. Approximately 10,000 individuals, concentrated near the equator." "The signal is definitely a distress beacon," Communications Officer G added. "It's broadcasting on multiple frequencies. They're trying to reach anyone who might be listening." Park ordered a closer approach and dispatched scanning drones for detailed surface analysis. The reports confirmed their worst fears. The planet's core had become unstable. Within months, perhaps weeks, catastrophic earthquakes would render the world uninhabitable. "Prepare a landing team," Park decided. "We'll make contact and assess the situation." The shuttle descended through turbulent atmosphere, landing on a relatively stable plateau near one of the underground settlement entrances. Park led the team himself, along with Medical Officer Hyun, Security Chief Woo, and Xenolinguist Lee. They wore lightweight environmental suits as a precaution against the planet's deteriorating conditions. As they approached what appeared to be an entrance, the ground trembled beneath their feet. A minor quake, but a reminder of the planet's failing health. "Movement ahead," Wu warned, hand moving to his sidearm. Figures emerged from the entrance, tall, slender beings with pale bluish skin and large, luminous eyes. Their bodies seemed almost frail, with elongated limbs and delicate features. They wore simple garments and carried no visible weapons. Lee stepped forward with the universal translator, but before he could activate it, he gasped and stumbled backward. "Doctor, what's wrong?" Park asked. "They're in my head," Lee whispered. "I can feel them. Thoughts, emotions, so clear." Park steadied the xenolinguist. "What are they saying?" "They're surprised, relieved, scared," Lee said, eyes unfocused. "They call themselves the Terrell. They'd been sending that signal for decades. They didn't think anyone would ever come." The tallest of the Terrell approached cautiously, hands open in what seemed a universal gesture of peace. Lee nodded, apparently responding to something unspoken. "They want us to follow them underground," Lee translated. "Their elder council wishes to speak with us." The team followed the Terrell through winding tunnels, illuminated by soft blue lights embedded in the walls. The underground complex was vast, but showed signs of strain. Cracks in the walls, makeshift repairs, and overcrowded living quarters. Children with the same delicate features as the adults watched the humans with wide, curious eyes. The council chamber was a simple circular room where 7 elderly Terrells sat in a semicircle. As the humans entered, Park felt a gentle pressure against his mind. Not intrusive, but present, like someone standing close beside him. Through Lee's translation and the Terrells' telepathic projections, their tragic story unfolded. Once masters of a civilization spanning dozens of systems, the Terrell had been a peaceful race focused on art, philosophy, and mental sciences. Their natural telepathic abilities had made conventional communication technology largely unnecessary among their own kind. But those same abilities had drawn the fear and aggression of the Vorax Imperium, a militaristic species that viewed telepathy as a threat. Over generations, the Vorax had systematically hunted the Terrell, destroying their colonies and forcing them back to their ancestral homeworld. "Why didn't you fight back?" Park asked. The eldest Terrell, introduced as Elder Neri, projected images of their history. The Terrell had never developed significant weapons or military technology, believing cooperation would always prevail over conflict. When the Vorax attacks began, they had appealed to other spacefaring races for help, but fear of Vorax retaliation had led to their abandonment. "We are the last," Lee translated as Elder Neri's mental voice filled his mind. "When our world dies, so too will our kind." Park listened as his officers provided updates on the planet's condition. According to their calculations, the core instability was accelerating. Complete planetary failure would occur within 8 weeks. He stepped away from the council to confer with his team. Earth's protocols were clear about non-interference in alien conflicts, but this was different. This wasn't about taking sides in a war. It was about preventing extinction. "If we leave them here, they die," Medical Officer Hyun stated simply. Security Chief Wu was more cautious. "We don't know if bringing them to Earth space might attract these Vorax to our doorstep." Park considered the options. The Pathfinder could accommodate the survivors, but they would need somewhere to go. Establishing contact with Earth Command would take days given their distance from the nearest relay station. A violent tremor shook the chamber, sending dust cascading from the ceiling. A reminder that time was running out. Park returned to the council. "My ship can evacuate your people," he said as Lee translated. "We can't promise permanent sanctuary until our government approves, but we won't leave you to die here." Elder Neri rose slowly, her fragile form seeming to straighten with hope. The mental impression she projected needed no translation, profound gratitude mixed with cautious optimism. Back aboard the Pathfinder, Park called his senior officers to the conference room. "Begin evacuation protocols," he ordered. "We'll need to convert cargo bays for temporary quarters. Medical, prepare for their specific needs. Communications, draft a message to Earth Command, explaining our situation." As the officers dispersed to their duties, Park remained alone in the conference room, staring at the image of the dying planet on the display. He had just committed his ship and crew to a refugee mission that might have far-reaching consequences. But watching the Terrell children being safely brought aboard hours later, their wide eyes filled with wonder at their first glimpse of the stars without the filter of their failing atmosphere, he knew he had made the only choice he could live with. "We're bringing them home," he said softly to himself, "whatever home might become." The first days after the Terrell came aboard the Pathfinder were filled with tension and uncertainty. The ship's corridors, designed for a crew of 150, now held over 10,000 refugees. Every available space had been converted to temporary housing. Cargo bays repurposed with sleeping mats, observation lounges transformed into communal areas, even some larger maintenance corridors sectioned off for families. Dr. Jin Lee, The ship's chief xenolinguist worked tirelessly to establish meaningful communication. The universal translator, designed to analyze speech patterns, struggled with the Terrell's primary mode of communication. Their spoken language was basic, used mainly for simple interactions with non-telepathic species they had encountered in their past. "It's like trying to understand a symphony by reading sheet music," Lee explained to Commander Park during their third daily briefing. "We're getting the notes, but missing the emotion, the context, the actual music." The Terrell seemed equally frustrated. Elder Sook, who had emerged as their primary representative, often sat in silence during meetings, her large eyes blinking slowly as if waiting for understanding that never came. The breakthrough happened by accident. During a particularly difficult session, Lee had developed a severe headache from the strain of attempted communication. As he rubbed his temples in pain, Elder Sook had reached across the table and gently touched his hand. The ship's security detail tensed, but before anyone could react, Lee gasped. His eyes widened, and for several moments he sat completely still, hand connected to the Terrell elder. "Jin, are you okay?" Park asked, concerned. When Lee finally spoke, his voice was filled with wonder. "I can hear her. Not with my ears, in my mind." He looked directly at Elder Sook. "They don't just communicate telepathically among themselves. They can connect with other species who are receptive." "Receptive how?" Park asked. "Emotional openness, I think. When I let my guard down because of the pain." Lee trailed off, still processing the experience. "Commander, it's remarkable. Their thoughts carry images, emotions, entire concepts in an instant." Over the next few days, Lee worked with other crew members who volunteered to attempt contact. They discovered that approximately 30% of humans could establish at least basic telepathic connections with the Terrell. Those who succeeded described it as suddenly understanding a language they hadn't known they spoke. In the ship's conference room, Lee presented his findings to the command staff. "They'd been trying to connect since they came aboard," he explained. "But most of us instinctively block unfamiliar mental contact. It requires a willingness to be vulnerable." "Is it safe?" Security Chief Wu asked, voicing the concern many felt. "From everything I can tell, yes," Lee answered. "They don't read thoughts against our will. It's more like opening a channel of communication. Both sides control what they share." Through these mental bridges, the full story of the Terrell emerged. They had once been part of a loose confederation of species that traded knowledge and culture across dozens of star systems. When the Vorax Imperium began their expansion 2 centuries ago, most races had chosen submission over conflict. The Terrell, whose telepathic abilities made them impossible to fully control, became targets instead. They'd been abandoned, Lee explained after a lengthy mental exchange with Elder Sook. Former allies turned their backs when the Vorax threatened retaliation. Despite their mental abilities, they never developed weapons. Their culture valued harmony above all else. "That's admirable," Medical Officer Han said, "but dangerously naive in a universe with predators like these Vorax." "They're aware of that now," Lee replied sadly. "But cultural change takes generations they haven't had." Despite improved communication, distrust lingered on both sides. Many crew members avoided the areas where Terrell gathered, uncomfortable with the idea of beings who could potentially read minds. The Terrell, in turn, kept to themselves, their large eyes watching humans with a mixture of hope and wariness. Elder Sook remained the most skeptical. During her mental exchanges with Lee, she repeatedly expressed doubts about humanity's intentions. "Your kind speaks of rescue," she projected, "but what will you ask in return? All help comes with a price. We have learned this lesson painfully." Lee tried to reassure her, but words, even mental ones, weren't enough. Actions would need to speak louder. The opportunity came 2 weeks into their journey. The Pathfinder had maintained a course toward the nearest Earth outpost while awaiting response from command. The ship's engineers had been working to reinforce the structural integrity of the hastily converted living quarters. Lieutenant Kim was supervising a team checking the power couplings in one of the lower cargo bays where many Terrell families have been housed. A group of Terrell children watched the humans work, their natural curiosity overcoming their parents' caution. Without warning, the ship's sensors detected a micrometeoroid swarm directly in their path. The automatic evasive maneuvers sent the Pathfinder into a sharp roll. In the cargo bay, the sudden shift caused a support beam, weakened from the recent modifications, to crack. Kim reacted instantly. "Everyone out," she shouted, gesturing frantically as her team rushed for the exit. Most of the Terrell adults understood the danger and moved quickly, shepherding their children toward safety. But 3 young Terrell had wandered into a small maintenance alcove, now cut off from the main exit by the failing support structure. Kim saw their frightened faces as pieces of ceiling began to fall. Without hesitation, she sprinted toward them, dodging falling debris. "Get to the door," she called to her team. "I'll get the children." The alcove was filling with dust as more of the ceiling collapsed. Kim reached the children and gathered them close. "It's okay," she said, knowing they couldn't understand her words, but hoping her tone would calm them. She searched desperately for a safe path back. There wasn't one. The main support was now hanging by mere centimeters of stressed metal, ready to give way completely. Kim activated her communicator. "This is Lieutenant Kim. I've got 3 Terrell children in Section C4 maintenance alcove. We're cut off. Need emergency transport or extraction." As she waited for response, one of the children looked up at her with wide, frightened eyes and tentatively touched her hand. Immediately, Kim felt a gentle presence in her mind, scared but also curious about why this stranger would risk herself. "To protect you," Kim thought simply, not knowing if the child could understand. The child blinked, and Kim felt a wave of surprise followed by something like gratitude. The rescue team arrived minutes later, cutting through a maintenance panel from the adjacent section. As they were pulled to safety, Kim noticed Elder Sook standing with the worried parents, watching intently. That evening, Commander Park was surprised when Elder Sook requested a meeting without Dr. Lee present. Instead, she brought one of the children Kim had saved. As they sat in the small conference room, the child reached for Park's hand. He hesitated only briefly before allowing the contact. Immediately, he experienced a rush of images and emotions, the cave-in from the child's perspective, the fear, and then Lieutenant Kim's unhesitating rush to protect them. Most striking was the moment of connection, when Kim's simple thought, "To protect you," had been received and understood. Elder Sook spoke in her limited verbal language, but the child provided mental context that made her meaning clear. Perhaps, Elder Sook told Commander Park, her large eyes softening, "Your kind is different after all." The incident marked a turning point. The next day, more Terrell approached crew members, offering mental contact. More humans volunteered to learn the basics of telepathic communication. Shared meals began in the mess hall, with Terrell and humans attempting to understand each other's customs and needs. Dr. Lee established a more formal cultural exchange program, with daily sessions where both species could share knowledge. The Terrell, it turned out, had much to offer. Their understanding of psychology and mental sciences far exceeded Earth's, and their astronomical knowledge included detailed information about regions humans had yet to explore. As the Pathfinder continued its journey, the uneasy coexistence gradually transformed into something neither side had expected: the beginning of friendship. The evacuation operation began in earnest once Commander Park received preliminary approval from Earth Command to proceed. The Pathfinder maintained orbit around the dying Terrell homeworld as shuttles ferried groups from the underground shelters to the ship. Each trip became more dangerous as the planet's condition worsened. "Surface temperatures are rising in the southern continent," reported Science Officer Day during the 3rd day of evacuation. "The tectonic instability is accelerating. I estimate we have 4 days before catastrophic failure begins." Park nodded grimly. "Speed up the rotation. I want 3 shuttles running constantly." The operation took on a sense of urgency that infected both humans and Terrell. The refugees brought little with them, only what they could carry and items of cultural significance. Elder Suk insisted their historical archives be prioritized, the collected knowledge and art of their civilization stored in crystalline memory structures. By the end of the third day, just over half the Terral population had been transferred to the Pathfinder. The ship was beyond capacity, with every available space converted to temporary quarters. Chief Engineer Moon worked tirelessly to maintain life support systems under the increased load. "We're pushing the environmental systems to their limit," Moon told Park during their evening briefing. "Oxygen recycling is at 94% efficiency, but CO2 scrubbers are struggling. We need to complete this operation quickly." Park rubbed his tired eyes. "Understood. We'll maintain current pace until—" The alarm interrupted him, its urgent tone cutting through the ship. Park rushed to the bridge, where Lieutenant Kim was already at her station. "Report," Park demanded as he took the command chair. Long-range sensors picked up a ship dropping out of FTL at the edge of the system, Kim said, her voice tight. "Configuration matches nothing in our database, but energy signature is massive." Navigation Officer Choi looked up from his console, face pale. "They're on an intercept course. Estimated arrival in our orbit, 3 hours." Park turned to Dr. Lee, who had been working with Terral elders on the bridge to coordinate the evacuation. Could it be? Lee didn't need to finish the question. One of the Terral, an elder named Nami, approached. She placed her slender hand on Lee's arm, and the xenolinguist's expression darkened as he received her mental message. "It's them," Lee confirmed. "The Vorax." The Terral recognized the energy signature. "They found us," Choi said grimly. Park made his decision instantly. "Recall all shuttles immediately. Prepare for emergency departure." "Commander," Security Chief Wu interjected, "there are still over 4,000 Terral on the surface." Park's jaw tightened. "I'm aware, but if that ship catches us in orbit, none of us will survive. We need to break orbit, hide in the system, and find another opportunity to return." The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, though the weight of leaving thousands behind hung heavy in the air. The Terral elders conferred silently, their telepathic exchange invisible but intense. Elder Suk approached Park. Through a mental connection facilitated by Lee, she communicated directly. "Our people understand." Her thoughts came with a sense of resignation and grief. "Better some survive than none. But if possible, we'll return for the others," Park promised. "I won't abandon them." The Pathfinder broke orbit just as the last shuttle docked. Engineer Moon pushed the engines beyond recommended limits, putting distance between them and the approaching Vorax vessel. "Can we outrun them?" Park asked. "Not if their FTL capabilities match their energy output," Choi answered. "But we might be able to hide in the asteroid field between the 5th and 6th planets. The mineral composition should mask our signature." "Make it so," Park ordered. The ship slipped into the dense asteroid field, power reduced to minimum levels. On the bridge, tension mounted as they watched the Vorax warship enter orbit around the Terral homeworld. "It's massive," Wu whispered. "At least 3 times our size." The sensors provided a clear image of the alien vessel, a dark, angular construct that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. Its hull bristled with what were clearly weapon emplacements. "They're scanning the surface," Kim reported, focusing on the settlement areas. Minutes passed in tense silence. Then Kim's console lit up with alerts. "They're firing on the surface. Heavy energy weapons targeting the underground complexes." The view screen showed flashes of light as the Vorax ship systematically destroyed the remaining Terral shelters. The bridge crew watched in horror, unable to intervene without revealing their position and condemning the refugees already aboard. Elder Suk and the other Terral on the bridge stood motionless, their large eyes reflecting the destruction of their world and their people. No tears fell. Terral physiology didn't include such expressions of grief, but the wave of sorrow that emanated from them was palpable even to crew members without telepathic sensitivity. After completing its grim work, the Vorax ship began a methodical search pattern of the system. They know some Terrell escaped. Lee translated the thoughts of Elder Nami. They're hunting us. Park considered their options. The Pathfinder's stealth systems were good, but a thorough search would eventually find them. Their only advantage was that the Vorax didn't know humans were involved yet. They were looking for Terrell ships. We need a plan, Park said. We can't outfight them, and we may not be able to hide indefinitely. It was Lieutenant Kim who offered an unexpected solution. Sir, the Terrell telepathy. Could it be useful in combat? Park looked at her. Explain. If they can sense intentions and thoughts, they might be able to predict enemy actions. Combined with our tactical systems, Park turned to Elder Sook, who had been listening through her connection with Lee. After a brief telepathic conference with the other Terrell, she nodded. We have never used our gifts for war, Lee translated. But to protect what remains of our people, we will try. Over the next hour, a plan formed. 6 Terrell with particularly strong telepathic abilities were stationed in tactical control, each linked mentally with a human operator. Their task: to sense the Vorax intentions moments before they acted, giving the Pathfinder precious seconds of advance warning. It's not much, Security Chief Wu admitted, but in space combat, even a 2-second advantage in reaction time can be decisive. The Pathfinder also had one technological edge: Earth's experimental adaptive shield system, designed to redistribute energy dynamically to meet incoming threats. Never tested in actual combat, it represented their best hope for surviving long enough to escape. Coordination is our edge, Commander Park told his crew as they prepared to make their move. Let's show them what humans and Terrell can accomplish together. Their opportunity came when the Vorax ship moved to the far side of the system to continue its search. The Pathfinder powered up and made a dash for the system's edge, where they could initiate FTL travel toward Earth space. They were halfway to the jump point when the Vorax detected them. The alien warship changed course with surprising speed, closing the distance rapidly. They're targeting our engines, called out one of the tactical officers, guided by his Terrell partner. Impact in 3 seconds. Shields to aft quadrant, Park ordered. The Pathfinder shuddered as the energy weapon struck, but the shields held, barely. Return fire, defensive pattern only, Park commanded. Target their weapon systems. What followed was a desperate game of cat and mouse. The Pathfinder was faster and more agile, but the Vorax ship's weapons were devastating. Each hit drained their shield resources substantially. What saved them was the telepathic early warning system. Time and again, the Terrell sensed the Vorax gunners' intentions just before they fired, allowing the Pathfinder to adjust shields or change course in those crucial moments. FTL drive charging, Choi reported. 40 seconds to jump capability. We won't last 40 seconds under this barrage, Engineer Moon warned over the comm. Shields are at 27% and falling. Then a Terrell navigator named Haru made contact with Kim. Through their mental link, Haru revealed something important. She had detected a pattern in the Vorax attack sequence, a brief vulnerability in their firing cycle. Commander, Kim said urgently, if we cut power to all non-essential systems and divert everything to engines for a 6-second burst, we can create enough distance to jump safely. But we'll be completely vulnerable during those 6 seconds. The timing would need to be perfect, Wu cautioned. Park glanced at the Terrell navigator, who projected confidence through her mental link. He made his decision. Do it. On your mark, Lieutenant. Kim counted down, guided by Haru's telepathic precision. 3, 2, 1, now. The Pathfinder went dark as all power diverted to engines. It surged forward just as the Vorax weapons entered their brief recharge cycle. For 6 terrifying seconds, they flew without shields or weapons, completely defenseless. Then power returned, and Choi shouted triumphantly, FTL ready. Jumping now. The stars streaked as the Pathfinder escaped into faster-than-light travel, leaving the Vorax warship behind. Cheers erupted across the bridge, humans and Terrell celebrating together. But their joy was short-lived. In the final moments before jumping, they had intercepted a transmission from the Vorax ship. "They've called for reinforcements," Kim reported soberly. "A hunter fleet is being mobilized, and they now know that humans helped the Terrell escape." Park sent a detailed report to Earth Command, explaining the situation and the potential threat now facing humanity. The response came 3 days later as they approached the outer boundary of Earth's territory. The message was brief but clear. "Proceed to Earth. The Terrell will be granted sanctuary. Diplomatic consequences will be managed. Defense fleet being mobilized as precaution. Well done, Commander Park." Park read the message aloud to his officers and the Terrell elders. When he finished, silence filled the room. "Your government will risk war with the Vorax for us?" Elder Sook asked through Lee. "After what happened to our former allies?" Park nodded. "Apparently so." "Why?" The simple question carried genuine confusion. Park considered his answer carefully. "Because it's the right thing to do. And because Earth has learned through its own history that appeasing aggressors only encourages them. If not for you, they would eventually find another reason to target humanity." As he looked around at his crew and the Terrell refugees they had saved, Park felt both pride and concern. They had begun something important, but the real challenge still lay ahead. The defense fleet gathered in the shadow of Saturn, 67 vessels arranged in a crescent formation. At its center floated the flagship Dauntless, where Admiral Sunhand stood with hands clasped behind his back, studying the tactical display. Earth's military had never faced an alien threat before. The ships they had were designed for exploration and security, not war. "Fleet status?" Han asked. Commander Yoon, his tactical officer, straightened her uniform. "All vessels in position, Admiral." "Shield synchronization complete." Han nodded. 3 days had passed since the Pathfinder had reached Earth with its Terrell refugees. 3 days of frantic preparation after long-range sensors detected the approaching Vorax fleet. 15 warships, each larger and more heavily armed than anything humanity had built. On the command deck, a small group of Terrell stood quietly near the tactical stations. They wore simple Earth uniforms modified for their slender bodies. After the success aboard the Pathfinder, military leadership had quickly integrated Terrell telepaths into key defense vessels. Their ability to sense intentions moments before action gave human crews a crucial edge. "The Vorax fleet has entered Saturn's orbit," announced the sensor officer. "They're maintaining formation." Han had positioned his fleet within Saturn's rings, using the ice and rock debris as partial cover. It wasn't much, but any advantage would be needed against the superior Vorax firepower. "They're transmitting," Yoon said. "Wideband signal. All frequencies." "On screen," Han ordered. The view screen flickered, revealing the Vorax commander. The sight made several bridge officers flinch. The Vorax were massive, reptilian creatures with armored skin and multiple yellow eyes arranged in a circular pattern around their skull. The commander's face was scared, the scales darker and more pronounced than those of the officers visible behind him. "Humans of Earth," the Vorax spoke in a deep, rasping voice, translated by the ship's computer. "I am War Commander Kreth of the Vorax Imperium. You have interfered in Imperial affairs by harboring dangerous fugitives. Surrender the mind demons to us immediately." Han stepped forward. "This is Admiral Han of Earth Defense. The Terrell are under our protection as refugees. We have no quarrel with the Vorax Imperium, but we will not surrender those who have sought our help." The Vorax commander's multiple eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of irritation. "You do not understand the threat these creatures pose. Their mental powers are an abomination. Their existence threatens all normal species." "We have seen no evidence of hostile intent from the Terrell," Han replied calmly. "However, we have witnessed your unprovoked genocide against them." "Final warning," Kreth growled. "Surrender the mind demons, or we will destroy your fleet and extract them ourselves. Your primitive weapons cannot stand against Imperial might. Han stood tall. We will await instruction from our leadership. The transmission ended, and Han turned to his communications officer. Signal Earth. Inform Director Ba that the Vorax have made contact and issued their ultimatum. The wait was brief. Back on Earth, the Global Defense Council had been in emergency session since the Vorax fleet's detection. They had reviewed Commander Park's report, interviewed the Terral elders, and debated humanity's response. The answer came directly from Director Min Ba, head of Earth's United Defense Force. Her face appeared on the view screen, composed but determined. Admiral Han, your orders are as follows. The Terral remain under Earth's protection. You are authorized to defend our space and our principles using all necessary force. Remember that we fight not just for the refugees, but for the right of all species to exist free from tyranny. This is humanity's stand. Buy out. Han turned to his crew. You heard the director. Battle stations. Prepare to engage. Throughout the fleet, crews moved with purpose. The Terral telepaths linked with tactical officers, navigation teams, and weapons specialists. Elder Sook herself stood on the Dauntless Bridge, connecting mentally with Han's senior staff to coordinate the defense strategy. War Commander Kreth is hailing again, reported the communications officer. On screen, Han ordered. The Vorax commander appeared, yellow eyes gleaming with anticipation. Your decision, Admiral. Earth's response came from Han, his voice steady and clear. The Terral remain under our protection. We do not abandon those who seek sanctuary. Leave our system in peace, or face the consequences of your aggression. Kreth's mouth opened in what might have been a smile, revealing rows of serrated teeth. As I expected, primitive species always choose extinction. The screen went dark. Their powering weapons, called the sensor officer. Multiple target locks detected. Han turned to Elder Sook, who stood with eyes closed in concentration. Through her mental connection with the tactical team, she projected the Vorax commander's intentions. They will target our flagship first. Commander Yoon translated. 4 vessels converging, aiming to break our center. Han nodded. Predictable. Execute Maneuver Terral 1. The human-Terral connection proved its worth in the opening minutes of battle. As Vorax energy weapons fired, Earth vessels moved with unprecedented coordination, adjusting positions with just seconds to spare. The massive energy blasts mostly struck empty space or glanced off reinforced shields at reduced angles. Han's strategy became clear. The Earth fleet would not try to match Vorax firepower. Instead, they used superior mobility and the Terral's predictive abilities to avoid direct hits while making precise counter-strikes against vulnerable points. Target their port weapons array, Han ordered as the Dauntless slipped between 2 Vorax cruisers. Fire when ready. Earth's weapons were less powerful but more focused. The Dauntless fired a concentrated beam that sliced through the larger ship's shields, disabling several weapon emplacements. Across the battlefield, the pattern repeated. Earth vessels darted through Saturn's rings, using the debris as cover and emerging to strike with surgical precision before disappearing again. The Vorax, accustomed to overwhelming enemies with brute force, struggled against opponents who seemed to anticipate their every move. How are they doing this? Kreth raged on his command deck. It's as if they know our attack plans before we execute. His tactical officer hesitated. War Commander, sensors indicate Terral life signs aboard multiple human vessels. They must be using the mind demons to predict our actions. Kreth's eyes darkened with fury. The prophecy. They have found their alliance. He slammed his armored fist against his command chair. Change tactics. Random firing patterns. Don't plan your shots, just fire at will. The battle shifted. Vorax weapons fired erratically, making their attacks harder to predict. Several Earth vessels took direct hits, their shields failing under the onslaught. We've lost the Intrepid and Challenger, Yoon reported grimly. 3 more ships reporting critical damage. Han studied the tactical display. The Vorax strategy was working. Chaotic, unpredictable attacks were negating the Terral advantage. But chaos cut both ways. New plan, Han announced. All vessels form micro-teams of 3. Each team has one ship with Terral telepaths. Coordinate locally, not fleet-wide. Let chaos be our ally too. The Earth fleet broke its larger formation, reorganizing into small, nimble groups. Each triad of ships operated independently, making the overall battle pattern unpredictable to the Vorax, while maintaining the telepathic advantage at the small team level. The tide began to turn again. Earth vessels darted between Vorax ships, causing them to hit each other with friendly fire in their frenzied shooting. 2 Vorax cruisers collided while pursuing an Earth corvette, causing catastrophic damage to both. 4 hours into the battle, the Vorax had lost 5 ships, while Earth had lost 12 smaller vessels. But the math was still in humanity's favor. Their ships were easier to replace, their crews smaller. The war of attrition would eventually favor Earth if they could hold out. War Commander Kreth recognized the shifting momentum. He ordered his remaining ships to concentrate fire on the Dauntless, hoping to decapitate the human command structure. 6 Vorax warships converged on Han's flagship, weapons charging for a massive combined strike. They're targeting us from multiple vectors, Yun warned. We can't evade them all. Han looked to Elder Sook, who stood with eyes closed in deep concentration. Through her mental link, she shared a dangerous but possible escape route. Full power to forward shields, Han ordered. Helm, prepare for emergency maneuver on my mark. The Vorax fired simultaneously, their energy weapons converging on the Dauntless from different angles. At the last possible moment, Han gave the command. Now. The flagship executed a desperate dive directly toward one of the Vorax vessels, passing so close that their shields briefly touched, creating a cascade of energy. The Dauntless suffered damage but survived, while the confused Vorax firing pattern resulted in 3 of their ships hitting each other. As the battle reached its 6th hour, a Terral telepath on the Dauntless suddenly collapsed. Before medical teams could reach her, she grabbed the arm of a nearby officer, establishing direct mental contact. They're retreating, the officer announced, eyes wide from the intense telepathic transfer, not because they're losing, but because they fear what's happening. There's a prophecy. The Vorax have feared it for centuries. Han approached. What prophecy? The officer relayed the message as the Terral recovered. An ancient Terral vision that foretold their salvation would come through alliance with a young species possessing compassion's fire and defiance's strength. The Vorax have feared this prophecy for generations. It's why they began the genocide in the first place. On the view screen, the remaining Vorax ships were indeed regrouping, pulling back towards Saturn's outer moons. They're hailing us, reported communications. War Commander Kreth appeared, his armored face showing no emotion. This battle is concluded, Admiral Han. You have fought unexpectedly well. But know this, the Imperium will not forget this interference. We will return in greater numbers. Han stood tall. And we will be waiting, Commander, with our allies. After the Vorax fleet departed the system, the Earth vessels began rescue operations and damage assessment. Despite significant losses, the mood was victorious. What would later be called the Battle of the Rings had proven humanity's resolve and capability. In the aftermath, as medical teams treated the wounded and engineers began repairs, Elder Sook approached Admiral Han on the observation deck of the Dauntless. Through their now familiar mental connection, she communicated a simple message that filled him with both pride and humbling responsibility. For centuries, we waited for the prophecy to be fulfilled. We did not expect our saviors would be so young a species, or that they would risk so much for strangers. The Vorax fear what we will accomplish together. Perhaps they are right to be afraid. The news of Earth's victory against the Vorax spread quickly across the known galaxy. Species that had long existed under the shadow of Vorax dominance watched with astonishment as the reports filtered through interstellar communication channels. A young, previously unknown civilization had successfully defended itself against one of the most feared military powers in the galactic community. Within weeks, diplomatic vessels from a dozen worlds arrived in Earth's orbit. The Galactic Assembly, a loose coalition of spacefaring civilizations that had long been dominated by Vorax influence, sent a delegation led by Ambassador Trell, a tall crystalline being whose translucent body shimmered with internal light. "We come to extend formal recognition," Ambassador Trell announced in the newly constructed First Contact Center in Geneva. Earth is acknowledged as a sovereign member of the interstellar community, with all rights and responsibilities thereof. The human representatives, led by Director Ba, accepted the recognition with appropriate ceremony. But it was her next statement that truly marked the shift in galactic politics. Earth also speaks for the Terral people, who remain under our protection. Their status as a free and independent species must be similarly recognized. There was a murmur among the alien delegates. The Terral had been considered extinct or irrelevant for decades, their voice in galactic affairs silenced by Vorax pressure. Now, Elder Sook stepped forward to stand beside Director Ba. The two leaders, human and Terral, presenting a united front. Ambassador Trell's crystalline form pulsed with blue light, an expression of surprise in their species. The Assembly acknowledges the resurrection of Terral diplomatic status. Their former territories, however, will be addressed in future negotiations, Bell finished firmly. For now, the Terral are establishing a new homeworld in our system, on Mars. We expect all species to respect their sovereignty there. The recognition ceremony marked the beginning of Earth's emergence onto the galactic stage. Trade agreements soon followed, bringing new technologies and cultural exchanges. Earth ships, now equipped with more advanced drive systems learned from their new allies, began to explore further into space. Meanwhile, the transformation of Mars had begun. The red planet had already been partially terraformed by human colonists, but the project accelerated with Terral assistance. Their deep understanding of biology and ecosystems helped solve problems that had plagued human scientists for decades. Commander Park, now promoted to Admiral, oversaw the security of the Mars colony. Standing on the observation deck of the new orbital station Unity, he watched as the latest group of Terral and human settlers descended to the surface. "Remarkable how quickly things change," said a familiar voice beside him. Park turned to see Lieutenant, now Captain, Kim joining him at the viewport. 3 years ago, we were a single-planet species with no concrete proof of intelligent alien life. Now we're at the center of galactic politics. Below them, Mars showed increasing signs of transformation. The northern hemisphere gleamed with new oceans, while green patches of vegetation spread from the equatorial regions. Domed cities housed both humans and Terral, but each year more areas became naturally habitable. "The botanical integration is proceeding faster than projected," Kim noted. "The Terral cultivation techniques are literally changing the soil composition." Park nodded. "Their mental connection to living things gives them insights our science is only beginning to understand." This was perhaps the most profound change since the Alliance began, the merging of Terral intuitive, psychically enhanced understanding with human analytical science. Together, they achieved breakthroughs that neither civilization could have managed alone. In medical centers across Earth and Mars, Terral healers worked alongside human doctors, using their telepathic abilities to diagnose conditions no scanner could detect. Human engineers, guided by Terral insights, developed new materials and energy systems. The first human Terral research vessel, equipped with these innovations, had already pushed exploration boundaries beyond what either species had achieved independently. Not all humans welcomed these changes. Some groups protested the alien influence, fearing the loss of human identity or independence. Others worried about the military implications, as Earth remained technically at war with the Vorax Imperium, though no further attacks had materialized. Political tensions rose and fell, but the momentum of cooperation proved stronger than the resistance. Public opinion shifted decisively after the healing crisis of 2027, when a pandemic that had defied human medical science was finally contained through Terral human collaborative treatment. 5 years after the Battle of the Rings, Mars hosted the opening ceremony of the first human Terral Academy of Shared Sciences. The building itself symbolized the partnership, a blend of human architectural precision and Terral organic design, with sweeping crystal spires rising from a base of solid stone, all situated beside the largest of the new Martian lakes. Dignitaries from Earth, Mars, and 24 alien worlds gathered for the event. Admiral Park and Captain Kim represented Earth's defense forces, standing proudly in dress uniforms. Dr. Lee, who had become the leading human expert in cross-species communication, led the academic delegation, and at the center of it all stood Elder Sook, now visibly aged, but still commanding respect from all present. As the red Martian sun reached its zenith, Elder Sook approached the podium. The years on Earth and Mars had improved her spoken language skills, though she still used telepathic connection for complex concepts. "Friends, colleagues, partners in this great journey," she began, her voice thin but clear in the Martian air. "When the last of my people fled our dying world, we carried little hope. Our history told us that alliances failed when tested, that stronger species would always abandon the weak when threat loomed." She gestured toward the human representatives. "We did not expect to find a young species with the courage to stand against the darkness. We did not expect to find a new home. And we certainly did not expect to find true partners who would value what we could offer." A gentle breeze, something that would have been impossible on Mars just years before, rippled across the assembly. In humans, we found not just protectors but partners. Together, we demonstrate that true strength lies not in domination, but in the courage to stand for others. This is just the beginning. As Elder Sook concluded her speech, a young aide approached Admiral Park, handing him a communication tablet. He read the message, eyes widening slightly, before discreetly passing it to Director Bai. The ceremony continued with the traditional ribbon cutting and tours of the new facility. It was only later, during the private reception, that Park learned the contents of the message. "Is it confirmed?" he asked Bai, as they stood apart from the main gathering. She nodded. "A vessel of unknown configuration entered the system 2 hours ago. When contacted, they identified themselves as the Nirans. According to preliminary translation, they're seeking asylum. From what? They say their homeworld was destroyed by the Vorax last month. Apparently, they had begun trading with a human merchant ship 6 months ago. The Vorax considered this sufficient reason to declare them enemies." Park absorbed this with a grim expression. "So the Imperium is making its move, not against us directly, but against anyone who associates with us." "It appears so," Bai confirmed. "The question now is how we respond." The answer came not from the military or political leadership, but from across the room, where Elder Sook stood in conversation with Dr. Lee. Though they hadn't been part of the discussion, Sook turned toward Park and Ba, her large eyes meeting theirs. The mental message she sent was simple but profound. "We know what it means to lose everything. We cannot turn away those who now face the same fate." Park found himself nodding. "Of course we'll help them. That's who we are now." Word of the Niran arrival spread through the reception. Rather than dampening the celebration, it seemed to energize the gathering. Representatives from various Earth nations immediately began discussing accommodation plans. Terral scientists offered to begin compatibility studies for Niran biology and Mars conditions. Later that night, as the twin moons of Mars cast silver light across the new lake, Park stood on the Academy balcony with Kim and Lee, watching the distant lights of the growing settlement. "Do you ever wonder if we made the right choice?" Lee asked quietly. "Taking in the Terral, standing against the Vorax, and now this. We've essentially declared ourselves the galaxy's sanctuary." Park considered this. "Would you have us be anything else? Turn away those in need? Abandon our principles for safety?" "No," Lee admitted. "But it won't always be as clear-cut as the Terral or these Nirans. There will be complicated cases, political refugees, maybe even criminals claiming persecution. Then we'll handle each case as it comes, Kim interjected, with wisdom and compassion, but also with caution. That's the path forward. Park nodded, looking up at the stars. No longer distant pinpoints of light, but places they now knew contained life, challenges, and possibilities. The forgotten alien race finds salvation in humanity's protection. He mused, quoting a headline from years earlier when news of the Terrell first broke on Earth. Turns out we found salvation too, in becoming more than we were. Across the settlement, lights continued to burn